Hello gamers, welcome back to King Kovu Gaming. I'm King Kovu. If you might have missed out on my last video about what makes a game great, please check that out when you get a chance. Alright, today's video will be about why I believe Japan studios deserve to die or close down or be absorbed into other studios. First and foremost, I want to address the latest article by PlayStation Lifestyle and the Insomniac hacker leak situation. Both of these items led to a lot of conversation about why Japan studios could fill in the gaps in between AAA games with their AA and smaller titles. This discussion has continued, and people believe that it might have been a mistake to close them down. I very much disagree. Their games throughout their lifespan did not sell well, and their most recent games couldn't crack 2 million copies, including remasters and re-releases. These are games like Knack 1 and 2, Gravity Rush 1 and 2, and The Last Guardian. None of them sold well. Also, as a studio, some of their highest rated games were actually co-developed or co-produced or worked with From Software, those games being Demon's Souls and Bloodborne. While Demon's Souls did get a re-release that also didn't sell that well on PS5, Bloodborne has not, and From Software has gone on to make several games that are critically acclaimed, and the latest one, Elden Ring, has been a commercial success and a big hit amongst gamers. And I believe it won Game of the Year. They have no incentive at the moment to ever come back to work on Bloodborne or to do something in cooperation with Japan studios, even if they didn't close down. Next up is that game development across the board is taking much longer than it used to. It's from AAA games all the way down to tiny indie games. For example, Supergiant Games takes about 4 years in between their titles. Hades and Hades 2 will probably have an over 4-year development time. Horizon Zero Dawn and its sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, another 4-year gap. Between Knack 1 and 2, 4 years. Last Guardian was announced in 2007 and released on December 2016. That's 9 years. Why would Sony or PlayStation continue to invest in a studio that takes just as long or longer than their other first-party studios, but with lower returns? It doesn't make financial sense. Next up is that Japan studios had a specific role when PlayStation was still in the handheld market. After the Vita failed, PlayStation has not shown any interest in having another native handheld console. So their only place that they would be able to go to is possibly Nintendo, but they would have been a PlayStation first-party studio, so they were stuck. This is especially bad for them because Japan itself as a market is leaning more and more into handhelds in the mobile space. The decline of traditional home consoles in Japan has been consistent since about the PS3 era. What role would they have played if they were still around? None. Next up, their IP in general, the way they develop games, the way they look, how they play, has not been able to gather a casual audience that wants to support their games. They develop artsy, niche, creative, often 2D or low budget games that look lower budget on a consistent basis. This is not the type of game that the average PlayStation gamer is looking for. PlayStation has conditioned their gamers for high quality, high production values, usually third person, narrative driven games. Japan Studios doesn't make that. Patapon does not fill that niche. Knack does not fill that niche. Gravity Rush does not fill that niche. If they were on the Nintendo platform where their fan base actually does like those games, maybe they would have had a shot. But currently, there's a big difference between the PlayStation fan base and the Nintendo fan base. The Nintendo fan base has been conditioned to pay full price, $60, $70 for games that look like Animal Crossing, Metroid Dread, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. PlayStation gamers aren't doing that. And gamers on a wide scale across other fan bases as well often have an issue paying full price for games that look like Nintendo games. If they don't have that Nintendo stamp, they're not buying it. And I also want to bring up part of the argument about Japan studios filling in the gaps between AAA titles. The article from PlayStation Lifestyle actually implies that the studios that they have currently would take time to develop those AA games in between their AAA games. I think what it's really pointing to is not smaller studios developing those games, but the large studios like Insomniac Games, Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, Polyphony Digital, etc., developing spin-offs or side games that are smaller in scope, shorter in length, can reuse assets to keep the budget down, and easier and quicker to develop. Games like Spider-Man Miles Morales and Uncharted Lost Legacy. So we can probably expect to have another spin-off to Spider-Man. It might be a Venom game according to the leaks. Another spin-off to Uncharted, or a Last of Us spin-off, or a Ghost of Tsushima spin-off, Horizon spin-off. And then maybe if they can develop new IP to be their next AAA game, they can then develop spin-offs or side games to those as well. They're not going out of their way to develop new IP specifically to be AA games. They're not looking for studios specifically to make those AA games. They want their successful studios who have already proved that they can sell titles, sell games, often over 10 million copies. They want those studios to make AA games and hope that those will sell, despite the lower budgets. This is something that Japan studios, again, would not have a role in the overall plan of Sony or PlayStation going forward. They have not been able to consistently show that they can sell AAA games and develop them in a good time span, nor have they shown the ability to sell smaller AA or smaller games that would also be profitable. Japan studios deserves to be exactly where they are, closed down and left to the past, because they failed to gain a large enough fan base, they failed to adapt to the changes in the video game market, and they failed to develop games that fit the formula or the niche that PlayStation gamers are interested in. I'm hopeful that the remnants of Japan studios, like Team Asobi and possibly those other studios that branched off from Japan studios, can be successful. But in all likelihood, they're not going to sell that well. And I believe my theory will be proven very soon, because the new Prince of Persia game, The Lost Crown, is currently releasing in January 2024 for $50. It's a 2D action platformer, and I highly doubt that game sells 3, 4, 5 million copies, despite being on multiple platforms. But we'll see. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Thank you everyone for listening and watching this video. Very much appreciate it. Like and comment and subscribe. Let me know if you think I'm right. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Thanks. Have a good one.